I bet you think we could almost run back the first segment that we were talking about, the Carolina Panthers bouncing back from a brutal loss, and just apply it to NC State, who's trying to bounce back from a brutal loss. I do think it's different. It's different for a bunch of reasons. It's different because NC State came in with high expectations. The Panthers came in with expectations of just being better than dead last. It's different because I think the NC State Wolfpack still have many of their goals in front of them and are attainable. Meanwhile, I'm not sure what the goals really were for the Panthers, but I don't think they are quite living up to them, and there are obvious things that they have to deal with. The challenge this week for the Wolfpack is not letting the Tennessee game linger, right? The challenge for the Wolfpack is understanding that a brutal loss on national television stings, but it doesn't tangibly change what you hope can happen in your season. The fact is, your goals are still ahead of you. And what I mean by that is the ACC, I mean, you haven't even started your ACC play yet. You never look ahead, and this team won't, especially not after getting the slap in the face they got on Saturday. But if NC State, at the beginning of the year said you split Tennessee and Clemson, those two games in the first 4 weeks of the season, you win one, you lose one, I think a lot of fans would go, all right, I'm fine with that. You still have the opportunity to do that next week. But you have to reset, recharge, turn the page this week against Louisiana Tech and get yourself moving in that direction so the Clemson game is even a possibility. If this week is spent wallowing in self-pity, if this week is spent worrying about what the world thinks of you because on national television you didn't show your best, then you're already at a disadvantage for the next game.
Snowball effect.
Part of me thinks, and Graham and I were talking about this off air, part of me thinks there's going to be a temptation to change stuff just to give you like something to point to, right? Where you could say like, yeah, Tennessee beat us pretty bad, but that was before we figured out blah, fill in the blank.
Hollywood Smothers needs to be carrying the ball more.
That's before we figured out how special Hollywood was.
How do we get Noah Rogers in the passing game?
That was before we featured Noah Rogers on this play. Or even something as simple as like that was before we changed up our practice schedule and didn't wait until Thursday to install our third down packages. Like I don't know what it is, but it feels like just mentally that helps. That's why sometimes a team can play poorly and then somebody comes back from injury and all of a sudden there's a new energy on the team. It's like, yeah, we were playing bad, but that was when Joey Schmoey was hurt. Now we got the big Joe Schmo back and we're good.
Well, it's almost like I've seen this story before. Matter of fact, I'm on Chapter 4 where NC State has a devastating loss in the season. I'm going to go back to last year where it was the 27-3, 20, whatever the score was. When they only put up 3 points against Duke, right? They go into a bye week. They're at the metaphorical crossroads in the season. And then what was the change? Brennan Armstrong finished in the final 5 games of that season. Now, granted, he didn't really have a choice because of somebody named MJ Morris, but you get what I'm getting at.
I'm absolutely getting what you're getting at. And I guess that might be something they could lean on, where literally Coach Doeren can go up and, bring up every season he's coached and how his teams have reacted to losses and say, look, we suffered a bad loss, but we've been here before. Sometimes sometimes it's just this. Sometimes it's just having a great week of practice. Sometimes you suffer a really bad loss, and if you're just out there on the practice field and you're moving crisp and the scout team is giving you a great look and the weather is nice and you are just cranking out good practices, that can be enough to get the feeling that things are fixed. So you're going into the next game saying, yeah, we got our butts whipped last week, but man, we haven't practiced better than we practiced this week. This week will be different.
The only thing about that, though, is that apparently they had a great week of practice going into the Tennessee game. But I get that, you can have a great week of practice until you go up against Nico and that Tennessee offensive and defensive line. That's when you find out what you're made of.
And then sometimes it's without getting too like this is what it was like when I played, sometimes you can have great practices of different variety, right? Going up against the scout team, sometimes you'll have a week where you dominate. Every play is a touchdown. You don't throw an incompletion all week, and you think that's a great practice because you're cooking them. When in actuality, you're just not getting a good look from the scout team. Then the next week, a lot of times, the coaches might shuffle it up, maybe put some better players on scout team. Now you're not completing every pass, but maybe you're talking trash, right? Maybe you're putting the scout team in their place. Maybe it's, okay, let's go. You're buckling up the chin strap a little bit faster. You have better competition. That's actually a good week of practice. It's not all about being crisp. Sometimes it's about really competing. Sometimes it's about just flushing it. And I've made this joke a few times. Burn the tape. Sometimes it's about just moving the heck on and not thinking about it so much. Whatever it is, part of the challenge for NC State is recognizing you can't let Tennessee beat you twice. If the aftermath, the hangover of the Tennessee game makes it so you don't correct as much as you should against Louisiana Tech, maybe you lose Clemson because you lost Tennessee. That's the challenge that you have to avoid, because that Clemson loss would be twice as painful as the Tennessee loss, even if you only lose by one. You lose to Clemson by one, that loss means more than the Tennessee loss because it hurts your ACC chances. It gives you 2 losses, so now you're 500. Like it's more important to be good going forward. Dave Doeren spoke with the media. He was asked about the week of practice ahead of Louisiana Tech. This is what he said.
Really good energy. It's actually challenged the guys to, we chart GPSs on these guys so we know how fast they can play and to make it the fastest practice day they've ever had, and they did. We had more players hit their top speed than we have in any practice this year. So I was proud of their response and how they came out. It's really our first true Tuesday practice of the year because we've had, game one, obviously you've got a long time, and then game two, we're coming off a Thursday game, So this is the first test.
Man, you can't fake anything nowadays. They got you hooked up to GPSs. Were you sprinting there? Oh, really? Because your GPS says you're only at 85% of your top speed. You can't.
Here's what I want to know. I know you said a lot of players maxed out their GPS speed. I want to know what they're outside of Casey Concepcion. Who were the players that were maxing out their GPS speed?
And what is it? It's great that they're moving around. It's great that they're having good practices. That could be part of the equation. Louisiana Tech, for lack of a better term, it's a get-right game. It's a get-right game. And I'm not saying Louisiana Tech is bad. I'm not saying that they don't deserve your full attention. I'm saying you have one game between getting beat by 40 on national television and Clemson. That's one opportunity to get your confidence back up and cruising. That's one opportunity to put something new on film to make Clemson think about. It has to be a get-right game. It's not playing a high school team that you just load up on to build your confidence. It's playing a real team, but you have to play very, very well to get your get right before you head into your not only Clemson, but then you thought possibly could be another get right game in Northern Illinois, but they just beat Notre Dame. And then you're in the ACC schedule. This is your tune-up. Even if Louisiana Tech isn't a bad team or some scrubs, like they get scholarships too, it still has to be a tune-up. Cleanse yourself of the Duke's Mayo Classic. Get all that mayonnaise off of you. That's a weird way to put it.